So as young men in the Gen Z generation, we struggle a lot with finding meaning and purpose in our lives. And a lot of that can come from a lot of reasons, to be honest. It can be due to the amount of privilege we have, all the distractions we have. We have no reason to like do anything. And that's something I've been grappling with for the last 2 years. And I did find like the answer to it. Obviously implementing it is a whole different idea. It's a whole different thing. But what I did come to a conclusion about was when I learned it from Jordan Peterson, right? And he said that the meaning that will sustain you through difficult periods in your life is to be found through the adoption of voluntary responsibility, right? That was something I was like, I heard that and I was like, gold, absolute gold. That's something I can meditate on, and if I can figure that out and implement it in my life, I will find the meaning in my life, right? Now that's something I've already made a video about that, and it's something I'm going to keep speaking about over and over again because I think it's so important. But finding that meaning, right, is something that it's difficult for us, right? And Jordan Peterson speaks about it where he says adoption of voluntary responsibility. Like you need to choose, right, to adopt a certain kind of responsibility that you're like, I'm going to put this on my shoulders. Now our parents' generation, right, we look back and they were like, they didn't really have this, right? Because they kind of had to do things. Like I look at my dad, like he had to go get like a job, and then they have family, right? They have kids that they have to look after. It's quite simple. It's like, well, you've got kids, so obviously it's easy for you to go and like do this thing, right? Or like I look at my dad. I'm going back to the same example. Going to university, for example, like he grew up in like the rural areas, like going to university, although he didn't end up going to university, but just finding a job and everything, like that is, you have to do that. Like there's so much pressure on you doing that, right? But for us, it's like, I don't need to do that, right? Like I could be a dropout and chill with my parents and until I figure my life out, right? I think our generation has got the highest percentage of like 25-year-olds that are living in their parents' basements right now, right? Because we don't need to do anything. Like there is that privilege of going back to your parents, whereas like with our parents' generation, I don't know about all you other people living in like first world countries, but I know for my dad, like it is like custom for like people like my dad who has done pretty well for himself, and I know like his best friend is quite similar. They have like a sort of like a duty of like the parents are looking to their kids to be like, okay, I've put you through school, now go and like make like good money, take care of your family, but also give us back some money. Like my parents send my grandparents money like every month, like they rely on them, right? And it's like, of course that's where that responsibility is, but we don't have that responsibility, and this is where the adoption of voluntary responsibility comes in, right? We need to like voluntarily choose that. Now I'm going to tell you about how I was speaking with my uncle, right? I was speaking with him, I think it was like June, it was a couple months ago, and I was just telling him like what I'm going through. Like I'm doing a really hard degree, I have like no will, I have like nothing left to give, you know, I don't, it's just hard to force myself to like do work now, right? And we spoke for a while and everything, but eventually came to a part that I actually journaled about it because I thought it was just so important. And I said to him, it was like, because he was saying to me that like, you have people like at home that are like cheering for you, right? Like your parents, they want you to do well, and they're people who, you know, you might be able to give back to you when you're older and everything, right? And he was telling me his story. Like he said he went through something himself where he was struggling with you know, the same thing I'm struggling with. It was just like difficult to get up and just carry on because you're just so tired, you don't really care about it anymore, like you just want to like throw your toys out the pram, right? And he was like, I couldn't do that because, you know, I had to send money back to my parents. Like my parents, like they needed help, right? And I was like, that's it right there. I don't have that, right? Like I don't have that. And then he was like, but you do, right? It's just in your own form. Like we do have that responsibility on our shoulders, but it's not the same as our parents had it. We have to find it in our own way. And when he said that, I was like, okay. And you know, I just heard like about the adoption of voluntary responsibility, and I was like, okay, that matches up. Now, to tie in the third Infinity Stone to the story, right? I was watching a Hamza video, and he was saying that like it's your duty to retire your parents. And when I heard that, I was like, yeah, because he was telling my parents kind of like stories similar to theirs, right? It's like, oh, your parents, like they grew up and they were doing pretty decent for themselves in their country, but they moved to a new country to give their kids better opportunities to get them like through college and everything, right? And you know, looking at like how hard they're working versus like us, we're very privileged. We don't put in that much work. You know, we've got everything we want, everything we need, right? So it's difficult for us to have that same drive, right? And he was speaking about how it's your duty to retire your parents, and I thought about it and I was like, of course, right? Like I look at my parents and I'm like, first of all, like there's a price for everything, right? Like every day that I'm just sitting there lying in my bed watching Netflix, not studying or whatever it is that I'm not doing, that's someone's paying for that, right? And that someone is my parents. Like they're paying for, the phone you're using, they're paying for the Wi-Fi, the electricity, the food you eat, everything. Like you're just eating up their resources, right? And every day you wake up and you're like, I don't feel like doing anything. It's like your parents are paying for that. Your parents' hard work, like they sweat, right? Is like you're just throwing it away, right? And any time, like say in my instance, if I was to fail this year, right, my postgrad year, my parents are gonna have to pay for another year, and it's like that's my parents' hard work that I'm just chucking away because I don't feel like it. And it's like when you look at it, it's messed up. It should be the other way around, right? Like very soon, like I know my dad's like 50, right? I look at it and it's like every day that passes that I'm not retiring my parents, it's another day he has to work that he could be like enjoying his life. Like he spent like his 50 years providing for family, for us, right? And every day that passes that he's not retired it's a failure on me. Like I'm 21. I should have retired my parents, right? It's something we should strive for. And when you really put it in that perspective, it's like damn, like if you have a conscience, it's like I really should be doing that, right? Like you should be retiring your parents, because every day that passes by is just because you don't know how long they're going to live for, right? And what remains is that the longer time passes, the more time they're working, taking care of you, when it should be the other way around. Like if I had everything in order now and I was, I'm financially stable, I'm sending money back to my parents, I'm like, Dad, you don't have to work anymore, Mom, you don't have to work anymore. They could be chilling, traveling, doing all the things they've wanted to do, right? It should be that way, but right now it's the other way around. And it's like, obviously I speak to my parents, like I love my parents, my dad's like, oh, you're doing so much better than I was at my age, just keep going, whatever it is you need, like you can speak to me and whatever. But if I just look at it like the way the situation is, we should be the ones doing the back-breaking work, sort of putting in the long hours. Like I still remember, I've told the story before, but I still remember like 2021, like late 2021, I remember I was waking up to work out, so it's not like I was like lazing around, but I woke up, I was up at 4, and I remember I just seeing my dad, like he was packing up from studying, going to sleep, and I was like, because he was studying to do his MBA, and it's like he's up like at these hours studying, and then he's going to get up and he's going to go take my siblings to school, and then he's going to come back, and then I'd see him like napping during the day because he was just so tired from like working and then studying for MBA and all of this. And I'm like, that's not right. Like that isn't right. It should be the other way around. I'm like the young one. Like I'm the one who's supposed to have all this energy. I'm supposed to be putting in the long hours, and my parents are supposed to be traveling the world, resting, doing whatever it is they want, right? And I don't know if that same situation applies to you. It should hit you like right here. But if it doesn't, like quite similar to what I figured out when I was speaking with my uncle, it was like the same thing will apply to your life, just in a different form, and you need to figure out what that is. Right? But either way, like it's your duty to retire your parents, right? I'm guessing most of the people that are watching this are kind of like me, like we're like middle class, maybe like some are lower middle class, some are upper middle class, but we're generally like middle class. Like none of us are like really really rich, right? But even if you are, like again, like I said, it's gonna come in a different form. Your adoption of voluntary responsibility, like that's going to come in a different form. Your purpose is going to be different. But for most of us, I'm assuming most people that are watching this, we're like kind of middle class. Like we're not struggling, but also like life isn't amazing, right? And I think that could work for a lot of you, and I think it could work for me as well. Like putting on that voluntary responsibility of retiring your parents. If you just think about like what I've just said, like that should hit you like right here, and it should be something. Go journal about it and see what you think. But yeah, make sure you subscribe to join the Self-Improvement Brotherhood. And until next time, I'll see you boys.